Every story in Tales from the Hood delivers punishment to the wicked. But the most haunting story is the one happening in plain sight, the tale of three men who find themselves in Mr. Sims' mortuary.
The first time you watch Tales from the Hood from 1995, Mr. Sims feels like comic relief, like this strange old man with a flair for the dramatic.
But behind the polite smile hides something infernal, the embodiment of cosmic justice.
But who is Mr. Sims really? And why was he chosen to work the mortuary?
I'm Heit.
And I'm Cheri.
And you've discovered Axiom Amnesia.
We want to thank all of the supporters who helped to make this video possible. If you want your name to appear alongside these contributors, make a one-time donation via Cash App, or you can head on over to patreon.com/axiomamnesia to enjoy all of the benefits of becoming a monthly subscriber.
If you haven't seen Tales from the Hood, you should see it, but we're going to spoil it.
That's right. This video is actually going to focus on the wraparound story of Mr. Sims, who's the mortuary owner, played by Clarence Williams III, and tale number 4, which is Hardcore Convict, because that completes the story. So we actually do have a separate video for each of the other tales in the series, and that's all linked in the description below. So when you finish this, you can go back and you can watch all of the individual tales in the series. So for a little bit of background on this film, it was released in 1995 by 40 Acres and a Mule Filmworks, and that's actually Spike Lee's company. As you may know, it was written and directed by Rusty Cundiff, and he actually appears in one of the tales playing the teacher. You guys probably know that tale. But this film actually blends horror with social commentary, and it's a similar tone, kind of like the Twilight Zone from the old times, right? Rusty Cundiff, who's the director, he actually was known for blending like horror and humor and political critique. And we think that he did an excellent job. Actually, Tales from the Hood is one of those, what I feel is hidden gems that is beloved by our community, but actually I think it should be appreciated as a horror film by, by the broader audiences as well, but I don't think it is. So anyway, this wraparound narrative that we're going to talk about today serves as like a moral framework, tying together all of this anthology's messages about social justice and consequences. But before we get started, let us talk about our new merch. Think for yourself and question everything. Break free from the so-called truths that they want you to accept. The Axiom Amnesia collection is here. Bold logo t-shirts and hoodies designed for thinkers who refuse to settle for assumptions. Stand out and make a statement and show the world that you don't just go along, you think critically. Plus, it's a great way to support the channel and keep the work that we do here going. Get yours today. The link's in the description, or you can visit us anytime at axiom.app. First thing I noticed when this came on is that the music sounded like the music that was used in Get Out. Jordan Peele's music, a little bit with the strings and everything. It was very creepy, and I wonder if Jordan Peele was making a kind of an homage to Tales from the Hood here. But as we see, we are about to find out what we are here for.
The composer for Get Out and I think all of Jordan Peele's movies is a guy by the name of Michael Abels. So maybe he could have drawn inspiration from this film, or, they probably discussed it.
So the first thing we see is 3 guys walking up to this mortuary, and this creepy music starts to play. The 3 guys are actually DeAndre Ball, played by DeAndre Bonds, Joe Torre, who plays Stack, and Samuel Monroe Jr., who plays Bulldog. And clearly, they roll up playing the loud music and whatever, and they are coming to this mortuary. And then, as a viewer, you're left to wonder, like, why are they showing up to this place?
Yeah, and we don't really know where this is. So I wonder, who had their subs just out the back window like that back in the day?
Apparently they did. The creepy organ music is playing, and Stack is like, look, I don't want no part of this. And so his self-preservation is actually, kicking in, like, why am I going to go in a place like this?
I ain't with this shit. Y'all can have this.
why would this be an actual mortuary that just exists? This place just looks like it's all run down and stuff. And I think initially I would be like, nothing's wrong with going up in there, right? There should be no question. But once you see the way it looks, then it's something ain't happening the way it should at this place.
And it doesn't exactly fit in with the rest of the neighborhood either.
Yeah.
Weird.
Man, both of y'all need to shut the fuck up, all right? We're doing this shit because this here's business, man.
They apparently have some type of business that they're alluding to that they need to go in here for. But what we see in here is this comic relief.
Well, if a dead motherfucker come fucking with you, you kill his ass.
I'm supposed to kill something that's already dead, man. That's like killing some shit twice, man.
Of course, we know that Joe Torre is a comedian. And, you know, think of Poetic Justice and other movies and things that we've seen him in. And then DeAndre Bonds, I think in a lot of ways is a comedic actor, even though he kind of always plays these sort of thuggish characters. At least back then he did. And he'll always be Stacy from The Wood to me. But this is before he played Stacy.
Yeah, like some refried beans and some shit. Why not just fry that shit right the first time and get up?
When we watched the director's commentary, one of the things they said was when he told the refried bean joke that people were just laughing and just cackling at all of the funny banter between these guys in this scene as they're going in. And I guess it's to lighten it up a little bit.
But to me, I think it speaks to what actually happens. So we know how this movie ends. So they're talking about why don't you fry it right the first time? And how do you kill something that's already dead? Like, I don't know if it's intentional, but to me, after seeing the movie, it's just like very poignant that these references are actually in here.
They're giving you some clues.
I've been waiting for you boys.
If I walked up and then that dude answered the door, it's going to be a hard no for me. I'm not going in. I am with Joe Torre's character. I'm out of here. I am not trying to go up in anything like that. So, and I just have to give it up for Clarence Williams III. Like, he played this role.
Yeah. And because you know how it ends, like this line, his first line, I've been waiting for you. It's so hard.
And let me just also say, before they knocked on the door, Bulldog Samuel Monroe Jr., his character was like, ain't nothing to be scared of up in here, right? And the funny thing is that he's always the guy, like he was the guy in Menace to Society that was Irina's cousin that went to, to settle it. I mean, ultimately, he was the one who took Kane out in the end, right? So he is, playing these kind of weirdly hardcore gangster roles. So, he's true to that in this movie as well, too.
Let's just take care of this business and move on, man. Now, where's the shit? Shit? The shit.
So it's revealed that the three guys are there because the mortuary owner claims that he found some drugs in the alley.
The drugs? I found a whole stack of them in the alley.
So they're like, well, where's the shit? But how did he get into contact with them for them to show up and for him to be expecting him?
And like, what did you have your business card in there with the drugs? How, and then how, like the whole thing, this part doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, which clues you into that there's just something that's just not right.
Some random guy just contacted you and was like, hey, come on over and I found some drugs that you can have.
And then what about the use? I mean, we have to just honor the fact that, this is one of the most quoted lines from the movie, the shit, right? And he says this throughout, as you're going to see. But the fact that that's what he's referring to the drugs as, right?
Well, I think it's because Bulldog said it first. But it makes sense because of the shit. All of these stories that we hear about in all the different parts is the shit of life, right? And death. So he's discovered the shit.
And he's about to tell you more about it now.
You get the drugs, then I get the money.
So he says that this is new to me. I'm not a drug dealer.
This is all new to me. I'm not a drug dealer.
Now, spoiler alert, hopefully you've seen this movie, but we find out who this guy is later on in this wraparound story. Because they're going to be telling tales along the way. But he says, I'm not a drug dealer. So, but we know that he is like the worst of the worst of the worst type of beings, right? And This is new to him, he says.
Yeah, I don't think there's any judgment he put on it, right? He's just like, I'm not a drug dealer.
Yeah,
I'm something else. I don't know how this works.
So
but
walk me through it.
he probably really is. He really does know how it works, right? Because if he's the devil, then he's gonna be a liar, right?
Yeah.
So he's just gonna lead you on and lie about drugs and lying about not being a drug dealer too.
But I want to go
possibly.
the extra little and say that he could be lying about that thing and he could not be lying. Because the other part is that we know that the devil historically will say things that are partial truths, right? He may actually legitimately have never really exactly been a drug dealer, right?
Well, or not know how it works though.
Well, but how about this? I would submit that how all of these kind of underhanded dealings work are the same at their core, right? Because if you go back, it's always going to have something to do with money.
Yeah, but if I deal in souls, then I know how basically everything works, you know, because he can tell you every story of every person who he's going to tell you about, right? Because he knows what happened.
What kind of drugs do dead people be needing?
All kinds.
They have more dialogue. We see DeAndre Bond's character, you know, like, hey, what happened to this guy since you're flipping open the casket and showing him to us and stuff?
Hey, so what happened to him?
And they have this dialogues about, you know, drugs and so on and so forth. But what we see is Bulldog just wanting to get to it. Like, look, let's get in, let's get out. That's what we're here for.
Kill that noise, man. Let's just get to shit.
Don't worry. You'll get the shit.
They're getting wrapped up into other things.
You'll be knee deep in the shit.
So then he decides, hey, I'm going to go in and I'm going to tell you about Clarence.
I'll tell you about old Clarence here along the way.
Unless, of course, you're scared, right? And this is going to lead us into tale number 1.
We'll talk about Clarence's story and Road Cop Revelation later on in another video, and it may already be out, so check the description and the info card. But right now, what we're here to talk about is the wraparound story and Hardcore Convert.
Reality is just a matter of perception.
So after we have watched Clarence's story, tale number 1, you know, we see him telling the guys, sometimes reality is a matter of perception. And so again, you know, he done told them one story.
Right.
Now he's continuing on just engaging them.
Because the first story that he told him was really a ghost story. It was, okay, you had this politician who got offed by police, and then he basically hunted them down and offed them.
Right.
So they're looking at it like, man, this guy is just telling us some foolishness, and they don't believe what he's telling them as a mortuary owner.
What the fuck happened to him?
Hey, can we just get our shit and go?
So he goes into another room, opens a different casket, and we don't, as the viewer, get to actually see what it is that they're showing us, right? You know, so, but they're like, what happened to him? Like, it must be gruesome.
And then he's like, you're going to want to hear about this. So it is clear that what each story that he's telling these guys along the way is something that's relevant to them or relevant to, I guess, life in general.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and they do stick around to listen to him tell all these stories.
Reality, perception, cornucopia of clashing, divergent ideas.
And what was that line he said? It just sounded like almost word salad, but I wanted to take a
cornucopia of clashing, divergent ideas.
All right, we got to pick that apart for a second. The cornucopia of clashing, diverging ideas. Okay, so like, let's talk about the definition of the word cornucopia.
Okay, so we have our own large language model generative GPT, but it says it refers to a large variety of different, often conflicting opinions and ideas. It suggests a rich, dynamic environment of thought and debate, which can be both challenging and informative.
Well, you know, I was just going to take it piece by piece.
Yeah.
You know, so like if we look at what a cornucopia is, one of the definitions, one of the things you probably think of is that, you know,
the fruit
like
of the loom.
the fruit of the loom thing, that basket that has like the fruits and vegetables falling out of it around holiday time, probably like Thanksgiving. But another definition is like an abundant supply of good things of a specified kind, you know. And so that was the definition, right? But so then what was the next word? A cornucopia of clashing,
divergent So that's like an oxymoron, right? Clashing, divergent. Clashing would suggest that they're coming together of some sort of a collision, and divergent is separating, right?
Or different, right?
Yeah, but it's divergent,
Right.
which I think of as
Well, they're different.
they're separate,
And,
right?
and the actual definition is like they're developing in different directions. So if we're divergent, like
We're
we're not even just separate, but like we're separating. If we're looking at the actual in real time, we're going further apart from one another or farther apart from each other. So yeah, we're separate now, but we're getting even further apart the further we go in this conversation, right?
Yeah.
And so you got all of these things. It's a good thing, but then now, you got it's divergent.
It's almost like that reality and perception is almost the exact definition of entropy. The tendency, I guess, of things of the universe to go towards chaos.
Reality, perception, cornucopia of clashing, divergent ideas.
So he's talking about reality versus perception, which was the part of the discussion that was being had at the time. So, we can't just take that phrase out of, he said reality, perception, a cornucopia of divergent ideas, right? Wasn't it ideas?
Yeah, but I don't take that as it being one versus the other. It's like a list: reality, perception, truth, life, a cornucopia of class. So that's how I take it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's always open for interpretation.
Because there are these beliefs that reality is just your perception, or there's a reality outside of your perception.
Or an objective
That's where
reality,
the clashing,
right?
divergent ideas come from, because perception and reality could not be the same thing, or they could be. Because they could be clashing and they can be divergent.
Right. And if we want to tie it to what's happening in these stories, it's like everybody has their perception of what is happening to them, and of course these stories are centered around Black characters. And a lot of times the experiences of these different characters, people who are not them, don't see that as a reality even, right? But it is clearly a reality to the people who are going through it. So
and they're pretty much about monsters and ghosts, each story.
So yeah, so perception and reality. I don't know. We could go on forever with debates and discussions about this. We've only hit the tip of the iceberg. I'm sure that there's somebody in the comments who is probably some sort of scholar and philosopher who can break this down even further. But these are just some of the things that we think of as we hear this. And, and he says that phrase so kind of in passing that you could miss it.
Want us to cover your favorite movie ASAP? A one-time contribution of just $50 or more to Axiom Amnesia gets you a deep dive on demand, a 30-minute discussion on any film you choose.
It's easy. Step 1, send $50 via our website, axiom.app, where you can pay via card, Apple Pay, or you can pay directly via Cash App at $Axiom Amnesia. See the links below. Step 2, tell us your movie, email, the name you want to appear on screen, and what kind of deep dive you want. General, a specific character, a particular aspect of the film, etc. Step 3, watch your deep dive on demand with your name listed as executive producer.
Lock in your deep dive on demand today and hurry. Spots are limited.
This offer is not valid for filmmakers or distributors. Subject to availability and terms apply. And one thing I will say about this movie is that when I saw it originally back in the day, I just thought it was this goofy Tales movie that did try to touch on some major subjects, but I just enjoyed it because it was relatable and it was a scary movie at the time. But looking back at it decades later, as a person who's experienced a few things, who's a bit older, I realize now, like, the scariest things are not exactly the ghosts and stuff like that, right? And the goblins and all of the kind of fake stuff that tended to be scary in scary movies, but it's the reality, right?
And that's what Jordan Peele say he basically drives what he makes his horror films about.
And this really, I should have given it a second look sooner, but this movie was really a very smart movie, couched in kind of these absurd terms, right? and you have to be paying attention. Otherwise, I mean, it could be as deep as you want to be. We get this a lot in our comments, right? Where people are like, oh, you know,
no,
it's
the
not
movie's
that
not
deep.
that deep. The writer's not that deep. The director's not. I think it's as deep as The Observer.
Right.
Because, like, I went to, you know, you go to museums and stuff, and I went one time, and there was a bunch of paintings that were just basically kind of like gradients. So it would be like the color blue, and one part is darker than the other. And then, you know, and I'm looking like, man, whatever, this is trash. But to other people, they're probably like, oh, this symbolizes this and this and this. Well, when it comes to that form of art that's like that, I'm not that deep. But the person who did it and other observers may be deeper than I am on that.
And it doesn't have to be an insult to suggest that a person is not
like,
deep,
I don't know what this means. Like, I'm not that deep when it comes to this blue
because there are some areas
that look
where,
like the color blue to me.
where I'm not that deep, and I'm not trying to be that deep either. So, you know, it doesn't have to just be an insult. You know, we all can choose where we want to have our depth of knowledge. We hope that it's just at least in one or more areas.
But then you just respect the people who finds the depth in things that we ourselves don't.
Right, without dismissing them. That's the hard part, I think, because people have a hard time with that. So this basically introduces tale 2, because he's like, look, you're going to want to hear this one. It's tale 2. Boys do get bruised.
It's about a boy who has a monster at home, and then basically the teachers or the administrators and staff at school discover it because he has bruises and stuff on his actual body. And we seen how he looked.
So yeah, the little boy Walter, he killed the monster, and that was just truly a disgusting looking sight in that casket.
So we introed this, you know, he introed it talking about reality and perception and what's reality to the boy, right? So we watch the movie, we see what our reality is. We see David Alan Grier's character. But when he told these guys the story, did he explain it, or did he just say that there was this monster at his home and this is the monster in the casket?
That's a good question.
Because we don't know.
Yeah.
Because they were looking like, what in the entire hell?
Because it looks hard. It doesn't even look human.
Yeah.
You know.
But like, which story did he tell? Did he actually say, oh, this was a man who was a monster who got twisted up by a piece of paper?
That would be interesting.
You know?
That's the piece we don't get as the viewer, right? Because it just morphs into whatever
what
the
we
reality
see and
is
how
of
we
what
take
we
it,
see.
right?
Let me close this thing.
So they start dropping hints with the doll. We saw the doll that was sitting there, and then, you know, it was knocked down and whatnot. And to me, the doll story, which is actually tale 3, is just so freaking creepy. The dolls are just creepy. You know, I got this thing, like, dolls can be so creepy. Maybe it's because I grew up in the era of like the Chucky doll, like the original one. Where, you know, where these dolls can be creepy like that. But you know what other dolls I find really creepy?
The Garbage Pail Kids? Well, they're not actual
Those
dolls,
weren't
but...
creepy to me. What's creepy is these lifelike dolls they have now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Those things are so creepy to me. You know, and every so often that, like, they'll come across my feed on Facebook or somewhere else like that, and I'm just like, I don't like, I don't want to see these little dolls. Like, I want to cover the face. Like, it just is weird. I can't. Everybody's got their little weird quirks and stuff, and these, like, dolls are mine. Can't do it.
But this doll, it's a way station for lost souls.
He further tells us that this doll is like a way station for lost souls.
A person's body has been through a lot. The soul is displaced.
It is a place for that the souls, you know, go when their body is just basically taking a beating.
This doll is a place for the soul to survive.
That's actually not unlike kind of the story of Chucky or any other story that's a scary story where they make the person's soul go into some inanimate object like a doll, right. And then, you know, the doll becomes human.
Yeah, so the last story, you know, we just checked the description for our video on it about the monster, right? It's basically that I guess the monster's essence or soul be captured within this paper? Is that sort of a thing. But then with this story that's coming up with the dolls, it's a place for the soul to survive. It's introducing to us the idea that the soul can be separate from the physical body, which in this realm of this mortuary and everything that we know from the ending is that the souls are detached from the body, and this is the soul in a different place.
Yes.
So I think it's really smart for the writers to do that, whether intentional or not. That's just the way I take it, where now we get to a story of, okay, the soul can be detached. It's leading us to where the movie finally ends.
Oh, you know what? I never made that connection, actually, thinking about it the first go round. Good point. So now we do get the intro to tale number 3. Triple K comeuppance, and you can only imagine what's going to happen in this story if you haven't already seen it with these dolls.
You for real?
Yes!
I found this doll in a house in the South. It is an amazing thing.
Go ahead and check the description after you watch this video. It may already actually be up and updated in the description, but it is a separate video, Triple K comeuppance. So now we get into the intro to tale number 4, Hardcore Convict.
This is bullshit, Bulldog. Now, what's up? You gonna search what we came here to get or what?
Once they come back from the whole story with the dolls from tale number 3, then they're continuing. They're losing patience, though, as they go along. Like, look, I'm tired of this. I don't want to hear anything else that they got going with this.
See, I ain't got all night to be listening to no goddamn ghost stories.
These ain't ghost stories.
But the Mr. Sims is keeping them engaged with what's going on.
Everything I say is real.
He takes them into a room, and then now they see this dude, and he says, "Oh, did you know him?"
You knew him?
DeAndre Bond's character is like, "Yeah, he's a guy we knew." And the other guy's like, "No." So they have conflicting answers to whether they even know this guy.
Sure did.
We didn't know him. He was just a nigga we seen around.
He got himself involved in that crazy gang madness.
So we see Sims saying that he got himself involved in that crazy gang madness, this shit.
Shit. He got himself involved.
And so again, now we have, that word being redefined to not only mean the noun of the drugs that they were talking about, but like anything, just like what you talked about, the shit of life. Well, in this case, he got himself involved and wound up in a casket because of the gang life. We're introduced to this character who is like a gangster, perhaps.
Yeah.
Played by Lamont Bentley. You guys probably remember him from Moesha. He's playing the character of Crazy K. He sees a guy driving who he's after, or wants to get with or hurt.
Yeah.
And now he's going to chase him. He does the U-turn or whatever. And he's going to chase this guy to get some type of revenge on him.
Motherfucker Deke right there. Yeah, motherfucker.
One question you asked before, you remember, is like, why are his sideburns like that?
Yeah, it reminds me of like a gladiator helmet or whatever. It's what it looks like.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, maybe it is another reference to the KKK because his name is Crazy K. And I was like, does it look like that mask? But it looks like one of those gladiator helmet type of things.
And I just want to say, Lamont Bentley, the actor who plays Crazy K, actually passed away in 2005. And he died what I would call a violent death. He died in a car accident in 2005 on January 19th. And he was just driving along and he had a single car accident in Southern California. And so they said that his vehicle was traveling at a high rate of speed toward the off-ramp, and he ran through a stop sign is what they claim, witnesses claim. And then his vehicle went through a chain link fence. So I feel like, he passed away at a young age in a violent way because a car accident is also violent. And it's sort of ironic that, he played a character that met a violent end, and he himself died at a young age too, which is sad.
So he played Hakeem on Moesha, I believe.
Yeah. And
in the Parkers, because, that's the same universe.
Yeah. Well, the Parkers was a spinoff for that show. Yeah. So, RIP to him, but just wanted to say that before we continue on with the story.
Smoke this nigga.
So we see that Crazy K catches up with the guy.
Goddamn, nigga, you trying to blind me or something?
Lil Deke.
All right. And, takes him out right there on the street. Then we see 3 guys. They come out and they shoot. Now, what I will say is You guys should know when you see that silhouette who it is, because that guy always creeps up on the scene the same way. That is Samuel Monroe Jr., Bulldog. He creeps just like he crept when he was in Menace to Society. What other movie was it that he kind of crept up on?
Don't Be a Menace.
Don't Be a Menace. Like, he does this crouch thing, and it's exactly the same way.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's, why didn't anyone know at the time? Like, I think that they did a great job and making this movie where the reveal didn't come till later on.
Right. So if you haven't figured it out by now, this whole wraparound story is about the three guys who took out Crazy K. And in the beginning, they're going to this mortuary and all this business, but they are the three guys who took out Crazy K. They know him. So DeAndre Bond's character was the only one who was really honest about actually knowing him when they opened up the casket and Crazy K was in there. But yeah, they are those guys. And then we get to see that in the next scenes. The next thing we see is that they're standing over him, but they do purposely camouflage their voices so we won't know that this is the three guys, even, that we've been looking at in this whole wraparound story. But also listen to what they say. They ask the question of, I wonder how many guys he has basically taken out over the years.
Yeah.
So this to me was like a weird jump the shark moment, or like, I guess maybe just this weird kind of hallucination moment that a person might be having if they've been shot.
Yeah.
But the three guys, all of a sudden when the camera pans out, like there's an entire police force that's right there. We don't hear them come up. We don't see any sirens.
That should have been a clue to us at the time, or anyone who's seen this for the first time. But this is, if you don't know, this is Crazy K's near-death experience that it turned into. Basically, when it pans up and turns and shows the cops, then that's where it, I guess, begins. Or maybe it's post-death. I don't know exactly. But I guess we'll just call it a near-death experience.
Yeah, and but I didn't catch it the first time I saw it.
Exactly. But I'm saying we know now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's happening. That's why it just doesn't make sense. And that is why we should have caught it the first time. And Crazy K says, saved by the cops, basically, begrudgingly.
Yeah, and this is after his near-death experience shows these three guys who ran out and shot him getting shot themselves.
Yeah, so, and I guess it goes back to the first story in the film, right? Which was basically about police brutality and whatever else and beyond, right? And I was like, dang, the cops quote, saved him. But this is just basically him hallucinating, right? Because this ain't real. The cops ain't doing that.
And this whole movie is like a commentary on the ills of, on the ills of the hood, basically.
So they basically say that his name is Jerome Johns. How does he get the name Crazy K?
Yeah, but oddly, he's got a K carved in his head, and we know, to me, which connects him to the fact that he's still Crazy K. But he's got this completely different name. And he's in like this jail / weird place. And suddenly he's healthy. We don't see any bullet wounds or anything in him. And, it just is weird. It's like, you're immediately transported to this place where, I don't know, is it supposed to be right now? Is it months later when he's recovered?
4 years, they said.
Oh, 4 years later.
It's the 4th year of a life sentence.
The 4th year of a life sentence with no possibility of parole. And he has got a life sentence for sure.
But how does he go from getting shot to being in jail, right? He's saved by the cops, but then they lock him up. But maybe he had warrants or something or got stuck. But that's a disconnect for me too.
Well, I mean, they read off all the stuff. He was suspected of murder. They didn't say convicted of. So what was he?
He got a life sentence.
What was his life sentence for though? Because they don't say he actually committed murder. They say he was suspected
But then
of it.
how he got here was what we just saw, right? The cats shot him. So why is he here now?
Good question. Because it's a near-death experience.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't make sense in the way that dreams oftentimes don't make sense.
Yeah, and I guess it's because in his dream he's like, oh, saved by the cops. So that must mean I'm going to jail. And then that's what happens. And then it's like, oh, you can go to this program to reform people like you instead of jail. And that's where we're in here. This is a grand hallucination.
So this doctor shows up and she says, look, you can get out if you consent to behavioral modification. The doctor is played by Rosalind Cash, and this is Dr. Cushing. And you probably remember her from a lot of different roles. My most memorable one for her is she was the dean, I think, on A Different World.
Yeah.
And, but she's been around a whole lot, especially back then.
Also, Ricky Harris was in here and Mark Christopher Lawrence. He was the guard. And Ricky Harris was Lil Deke.
So next we see that Crazy K is being transported to this behavioral modification place, which is like a creepy, big castle-looking building on a hill.
Haunted house, a haunted castle.
Yes. But what else is weird is like he's chained up, but he is being transported like standing. This is very weird looking to me. So he arrives at this prison/insane asylum type place. And I can't help but think of like, okay, how does his hair cut like that? And then he's got his sideburns cut like, they've always been just perfectly, but yet you've been in prison like this, How does that work? So he sees some disturbing images while he's being placed in this insane asylum type place. And some bodies were hanging upside down. And then ultimately he's taken into kind of a cage. And the way you would see animals or laboratory animals, he is literally a lab rat. And he's placed in cages that are like even one stacked on top of the other. And they're small, like you can't even stand up in the cage. So, of course, he gets placed next to a supremacist. He starts messing with his mind before he can even get in there good. And, he's like, you might be my first soldier in my army. And, he starts calling him racial epithets. The guy challenges Crazy K and he's like, what are you in for? Crazy K tells me he's in for murder. And then he's like, well, me too. And basically he kills a lot of people and you want to know what kind. And he tells him to come over here. But then when Crazy K is hesitant, then he says, well, are you scared? And this sort of reminded me of earlier when Sims says to the three guys, like, why, you don't want to know about this? Are you scared? Are you, you won't continue on with what I'm about to put you through. And they just use that easy one. Are you scared as a way to punk people? So the guy tries to get Crazy K to join his army and he confesses that, basically it's the stereotypical situation you would expect from these supremacists and, what the war that they want to bring about, et cetera, et cetera.
But he basically recounts Revelation. But he's like, I was spared. You know what I'm saying? Like making himself like, as a supremacist, we're basically God, right? And you can be a part of our kingdom if you just do these things. We're spared your lives.
Right. So the long and the short of it is that, they plan on, essentially doing in black folks but you can be spared if you will do your own people in and be on their side and do their work. You get the great, wonderful, awesome prize of being able to be their slave. That's the best you can get. And he asks him, do you want to join? And then, of course, Crazy K is like, nah. And he punches him in the face through the bars. Then the guy makes Crazy K think about something. The fact that the people Crazy K took out were also black people. And essentially, you're already on their side, right? You're doing their work. That is the message that is being conveyed here. And he didn't have to guess, right, what race the people were that Crazy K took out, because he's like, I already know, and Crazy K's got this expression on his face because it's true. So then the doctor confesses that she purposely put him next to the supremacist in the cages so that, he would basically tell him what he told him. And that you can tell that she has some contempt for Crazy K too, because of the destruction that he's bringing upon his own people. So I have to stop here and talk about wardrobe. First of all, the helper women who are there are dressed in like these weird outfits. And then, the doctor is dressed, I guess doctorish, but, not with a white coat like some of the other people who are around. But why does Crazy K have to wear like a thong?
And this is his hallucination where he has to be dressed like this.
So he's in this room that kind of looks like the dungeon room, or in that place where Freddy Krueger was, or Freddy Krueger's mother was, like this dungeon, crazy looking place. And they start, attaching him to a device. And it's almost like he's in this torture device, torture chamber sort of thing. And the doctor is getting off on attaching him to this stuff and him being in pain and discomfort. It's very S&M. So we find out that this table he's been attached to can spin, and it's spinning him really, really, really fast. And at the same time, he's being shown these visuals of drive-by shootings and other types of hood violence, juxtaposed against the violence that was perpetrated upon Black people throughout the decades, the centuries, by folks who were racist. And she asked him, she's like, what's wrong? You don't like, the images you're seeing, you don't like seeing Black people die or whatever. And, she's referencing what he did with his life.
Yeah, and the filmmakers basically play all this. So it's a very long sequence where this is happening. And then they put basically what would be called gangster rap at the time over it. That's just saying the most egregious thing at the exact same time. That's it's showing all these images.
Yeah.
Which, if you're watching this in your mind, you're like, dang, are these equivalent? Because I think a lot of the stuff, the hood violence that they showed in this portion was they filmed themselves. It was actually acting, but it was actual footage of the historical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that, okay, you might find these images disturbing, which is basically just a movie, but how, is it different when it's just a movie? Is it different when it's just music as well?
And the other thing it makes me consider is what they're comparing. Essentially, I feel like you're saying you're just as bad as these people throughout history who have done things to your people when you do that. And I'd like to just take it to the comments and ask the people, do you think that people who perpetrate violence on their own are just as bad as the people who have historically done it? And then I guess we should give our answer to that question. Personally, my answer is, while it is completely egregious and terrible and disgusting to do certain things to your own people, the one thing that I guess you could call it Black on Black stuff, they don't have the power. The power is not there, right? Whereas when it's connected to the people who have historically done things, that wasn't the only thing they were doing, right? They weren't just doing the killing. They were killing. They were making laws that made it where your life was miserable. They made situations where you couldn't have, you couldn't have a good life. You couldn't even pursue things. And even still, when you look at systemic and institutionalized racism, it's just no comparison. So I think this is a short-sighted argument that we do see a lot of times, especially we see it nowadays from the people who like the color red politically. And it just is a bad argument.
Yes. But I think, I don't quite remember, but was this argument first posed at this moment, in this movie, or was this just that in the movie is exemplifying what the tenor of debate was at the time, where it was being equated to the historical racist people? And either way, the argument is to try to compel or persuade people to change their ways who ain't even listening to you. Mm-hmm. So I guess people are supposed to watch this movie and be like, all right, because it's like those groups, then we're going to just stop doing this, not taking into consideration the things that were happening way back that you explained, basically contributed to the conditions in which these people in this time in the 90s and up to now are faced with. Mm-hmm. So it's not the same. You're not doing the same thing and for the same reason.
And I think you have to be careful, because what you hear is maybe arguments that might have come from us at first be turned against us in political debate.
Man, it's always been happening.
We see that, especially now with right-leaning people, then bringing this up. Anytime something wrong happens to us, then it's like, but what about Black on Black stuff, And
people then response is, well, the violence happens where people are, and there's basically segregation in the U.S., so all the violence is going to be on your same race. But Black people use that argument to compel and persuade other Black people to not to do it, and it didn't work. And now 20, 30 years later, it's used against us, and now we're like, but you know?
Well, and we have to also consider the climate of the time too, which was a good point you brought up earlier. And the kind of the vitriol that was happening at the time against what they called gangster rap, right?
Yeah.
And their argument was that gangster rap is the one, it's influencing in making people do what they're doing in the streets.
Yeah. And sort of with like the whole the crime bills and stuff, like 94 crime bills, and the issues with police, it was a lot of Black people themselves or ourselves who were like, we need our communities to be more policed. We're tired of crack, that disparage that happened between crack and powder and all of that.
And
it was a big push from Black people who wanted some of this stuff enacted.
And to add on to that, meaning that it is not just the right who are doing things toward the community that's very negative,
like the welfare mom thing too at the time.
The current president. Let's talk about him. I mean, he had a big crime bill.
The one that I'm talking about.
Yeah. Like, again, it's otherizing, and it is dehumanizing our community but it was supported and continues to be supported, right? You look at President Biden, his reward decades later is he gets to be president after the crime bill. Hillary Clinton almost became president, and she was calling our people super predators.
Yeah, it did the whole the social programs during the Clinton presidency was basically, we're gonna stop. You get a limit on how much you can be given, and you're gonna run out of your lifetime benefits. Basically cutting off that safety net that a lot of people had. I think that was like 96, the welfare, one of these welfare acts.
But before somebody says, "Oh, but don't you care or whatever about the violence?" I absolutely do care about the violence.
We're talking about the arguments.
The violence is too great, and that something that we have to do something, our community has to do something. And part of that is a change of mindset. Part of that is actually valuing the lives of our brethren. But that to me is a separate argument from what systemic and systemic racism and white supremacy has done.
Yeah, and I think that I have an issue with the arguments that are being used and the strategies, because we see from the past how these same arguments and strategies haven't worked and then are turned against us, which don't mean that, I don't care about the issues. We're talking about specifically the arguments and strategy.
And all of this is coming from this scene in this movie, right? It's all touched upon here, because what they're saying, and on some level, we talked about this with previous movies, like, this is the message. Now, what I'm not exactly sure of is whether the creators of the film, whether this is their opinion, or whether they are highlighting a perspective about the rap and the gang violence and all of that.
And the groups.
The groups, right. For those of you who don't know, you should visit axiom.app, and you'll be able to look at all of the recent videos across all of our channels. And I'm putting that on the screen right now just so y'all can see it and see what it looks like, because there are a ton of videos that are over there. And also, I think that there are at least about 100 exclusive videos that are available for our Patreon members and our YouTube members. So, if you're interested in more of our content, as I've seen many of you binge watching, be sure to check those things out. So the doctor is continuing to lecture, and she talks about how Cain from the Bible is the world's first murderer because he slain his own brethren.
Yeah, so this was directly showing Black people talking about the issue of Black on Black violence. That's how it was couched at the time. So here we are basically 30 years later, where we can see that we were making this argument because it's in our popular media.
Yeah. And, just to add on, we've done a whole lot of talking about these movies and about Cain from the Bible, Cain and Abel, and that whole story as it relates to other stories that we were told, right? The story within Menace to Society, where the main character's name is Cain, and a lot of the common things, right? His willingness to participate in things and take people out, he was a Cain. And even in the Netflix limited series True Story, we saw a Cain and Abel brother relationship where ultimately one brother slews another. And investigate that. We talked about that on this channel, and we will link that in the description, but you should look at our full breakdown of Menace to Society, as well as our discussions that we had on Cain and Abel and other things related to the Netflix series True Story. Let me just stop and say also that this scene is too long. Like, we get it. We get it. We get the images throughout time. Like, if I could ask the filmmaker, why did they choose to make this scene so long?
Yes, it's an entire song. And I think that it doesn't advance the story. We just watch this. You forced me to watch this grotesque violence for 3-4 minutes or however long it is.
Yeah, it was just too long. So once the spinning table stops, they tell him that they're going to take Crazy K to the sensory deprivation chamber.
Sensory deprivation chamber.
So then in this sensory deprivation chamber, we see that Crazy K starts to have these hallucinations where he's literally seeing ghosts of people who he's taken out. The first guy is a guy who he says I don't know why I laughed there, but because it's not funny, but he says he kept coming up short, presumably in the sale of drugs.
What else am I supposed to do?
Yeah, and he justifies killing him. And the guy's like, I ain't talked to you in a while. Why you kill me? Kind of thing.
Tracy?
Yeah, man.
You killed my ass.
Why?
You was coming up short all the time, man.
But this whole scene kind of makes me think of, spoiler alert, this movie, Inception, where there's basically dreams within dreams within dreams. So if this is his near-death experience or hallucination, and then he goes into the sensory deprivation thing and then starts to hallucinate in there, where are we in reality?
How many levels down?
How slow has time stopped?
So the next group of guys is like, you just did a drive-by on us and started blasting. We weren't even the guys you were looking for, and you just indiscriminately started shooting.
We ain't even the ones that kept your homie.
So there's a little girl who's like, but I ain't do nothing.
I didn't do anything.
So a bullet came through the wall and hit me.
I was playing in my room, and the bullet from your gun came through the wall.
Yeah, and he say bullet ain't got no name on it.
A bullet ain't got no name on it.
But I'm thinking at this point, is this scary?
No, but I don't know.
As a horror film we're watching, it seems kind of preachy. Like, who are you preaching to? Because most of the people who go and watch these movies are going to get it, right? Most of the people aren't doing the things of who you claim to be trying to reach, possibly. So
you're preaching to the choir, in other words. You're giving lectures to people who
get it. Yeah, dang, it's messed up that bullets go through walls and hit girls. Like,
and another thing to mention on that note is that prior, the people before, he blamed them for what happened, right? Their actions is what brought upon him having in air quotes, to do them in. But this little girl, then now he's justifying, well, bullet ain't got no name on it,
And maybe this is just for the emotional tug of war that you have to be able to do. You have to be able to affect someone's emotions, maybe, so that they can feel fear, happiness, or sadness, or whatever. Because when a little girl comes out, I guess you do feel some sort of sympathy there, where it's like, dang.
Or you ought to.
Folks are, Well, most people will, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, dang, they killing little girls. You know what I'm saying? And this is one of them.
And being from Chicago and the violence that happens on the streets there, I can't help but think about how every so often and too often, you do hear the stories of a little kid, and a lot of times they're like in their house, just the bullets coming through the window and taking these little kids out, and they're just young.
As an aside, I think that stories like this, where it's like, okay, we're going to have these morals, like all of these hood movies that's talking about gangster life, that's like, it's showing you that you ain't got to do it, it's wrong and all this. It's just like we said before, it's as deep as the observer. So if I go in and this is the lifestyle that I promote, then when I see this stuff, I'm basically cheering this stuff on. This is I take the good parts to like whatever I feel is good, and the bad parts you just push to the side. And it's not really changing them. They just happy to see the stuff that they do on the big screen being highlighted.
So eventually the room fills up with all these people who were, shouting out their stories at him or whatever.
A lot of them.
And he did take out a lot of people. So, of course, he starts telling them to shut up. And then he's talking to the doctor and he's like, you gonna blame all this on me?
So you gonna blame all this shit on me?
Well, who else would we blame it on? And the thing is, that the room literally fills up with people who he has sent to the grave.
Is he reformed at all?
No.
Like, yeah, so what is the purpose of this? And at this point, do we know? Because the story starts off with Sims basically saying, oh, he got taken out, right? And then it shows him going to this facility. Maybe it's like, hey, we think that he got out and then he got gunned down. Or is it that he was just basically locked up forever?
Well, I guess
Like,
I have to
at
go
what-
with the actual, like, kind of the way I interpret the actual story, which is that since we feel like this is the near-death experience, this was his chance, right? And one could say it was his chance to maybe survive, so that if he had survived this thing, if he had successfully been like, I'm sorry, but he never said I'm sorry. He just blamed the victims for what he did to them. And if he had said I'm sorry, maybe he could have lived. Or if he said I'm sorry, he wouldn't have wound up in hell.
But I think that's separate than whether or not someone who is watching who is unaware that this is his near-death experience, where that person would be with all of this.
Yeah, I don't. As far as that dialogue,
Because I don't remember how I felt when I first
neither
seen
do
this.
I. I just think my guess would be that I just accepted what was there because it didn't make any sense. You know, you're just like, okay, keep going. I'm watching. All right, yeah, it was weird. It was, it's like those movies that have a visual, like the equivalent of a visual word salad. You're just seeing all these things and it's not necessarily fitting together all, neatly.
Yeah.
Or logically. So once again, the doctor is telling him, you are responsible for what
You are responsible for the lives you've taken,
you've done, the dreams you've taken, and essentially, and the nightmares you've caused for people.
for the dreams you've turned into nightmares.
And he's like, what about my nightmares?
What about the nightmare I lived in?
That is a telltale sign of a person who is not ready to take any kind of responsibility when you say to them, hey, here's this thing. This is where you fell down. And they say, but what about my insert whatever it is?
I think that's an argument against those who would say that the conditions that that people are born into contributes to where it is too. It's an argument to say, to be against that even view at all. Where when somebody say, all right, I understand, but what about what cost me?
But that's not what he said.
Okay.
He completely, so to say, I get it, I understand, but what about me? Or what about, what led me down this path is one thing, right? But to completely reject your own responsibility at any level for what you did, which is essentially what he just did in this scene, is a different
but I disagree
place
with
mentally.
that's what happened.
Well,
I think he just said, what about my nightmare? Because if it's that, all right, you have some responsibility, but the only thing that matters is what he done after everything that happened to him, right? Because that's all we see here in this whole part 4.
Right.
Is the consequences of Crazy K.
Mm-hmm.
What about my nightmare? It's not shown in this film.
No. And it's not, we don't know what made Special K like he was.
Yeah.
Okay. So that to me begs the broader question of what is our level of responsibility in the world? Do we get to just say because bad things happen to us or bad things happen to our group that we, don't have responsibility if it's a cause and effect sort of a thing? Is that it? And I'm just kind of throwing this out.
I don't know. It sounds like
an
all or nothing question.
So my personal answer to that is that there, to me, that would be like what I'd call like a mitigating circumstance. Let's just assume, I don't know, let's say he didn't have any parents and, he was raised by the system and in foster care or something like that, right? Where things could have been really bad for him, and maybe think Antoine Fisher type of story. And let's say that was his thing, but yet the people who took him under the wing were the gang or whoever had taught him how to do this so that he could survive. And then this was the end result of that. And that at points he didn't know any better. I think your responsibility starts at points when you do know better, as far as the definite responsibility. But from an objective perspective, he's responsible for the people he killed.
What if he's the boy? He probably has a different name from part 2.
So if he's the boy who had his
had
David Allen Greer,
who
who had the
twisted up.
monster, yeah. If that was him and then he turned into Crazy K, like that was his background, he still is responsible.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that someone is not responsible. See, it's not an all or nothing thing. It's that one portion is not shown, right? This whole thing is about look what you've done. But it's not even taking into consideration anything else.
Okay.
And that's how these arguments always are, which is why I said that is basically against the argument of, hey, we need to look at the mitigating circumstances.
Right. But I guess I would
That's what
say
that question asked
and,
when I see it.
And my thought when I said what I said about him is that preceding what we just talked about, he said, no, shut up. So he's like rejecting the idea that he has any responsibility.
I would expect anybody who has issues to reject it, especially initially in a situation like this.
So maybe he's
or
crazy.
Not.
Maybe
his name is Crazy K.
Maybe he is like clinically insane.
Could
maybe,
be, but
you know,
even if you're not, you just went through what they doing this mental experiment thing on you.
But here's what I would say. Maybe so one could be like, oh, maybe he's not capable of logically understanding what his part is. But it's funny to me that he could put together the logic of all the rest of the stuff and how it's somebody else's fault, right? Possibly. You know, you could put the logic of putting it on somebody else, but you can't put that logic on yourself, you know, on your own deeds. That's what I'm saying.
Who is responsible? Your mother? Your father? Your teachers?
She asked him if who's responsible, his teachers, his parents, his whoever, and he said, yeah. And you know what? Depending on what happened to lead him there, I could agree they too are responsible.
But I think this is pushing the message that it's not them.
Mm-hmm.
It's that it's just the individual, and he decides if he's going to do what he's going to do, no matter what else happens to him, that he's in total control.
Yeah, I disagree with the doctor, to be clear.
Yeah, and I'm saying that's the message of the movie. That was the question preceding this was, what about my nightmare? And then the doctor come and say, oh, don't worry about none of that. It's all you.
You decide when your nightmare ends, face.
Why did they do the strobe thing here?
Yeah, I don't know. It's got annoying after a while because it went on for way too long, much like that spinning scene.
Yeah.
Let me about this motherfucker!
There's nothing to stop you, Jerome.
So, of course, Jerome is like, he wants to get out of there. And she's like, you know, you've had the power within you the whole time. You know, it's kind of like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. Click your heels 3 times. And then, you know, he's able to break free of his chains, so to speak, out of that chair. And then he kind of takes one of the workers hostage and says he'll snap her neck and all of this and that as the doctor continues to try to talk to him.
I don't give a fuck! I don't give a fuck!
So again, we're transported back to the original scene where he's laying there after he was first shot by the 3 guys from this wraparound story. And he's saying, you know, he don't give a F. He don't give a F over and over and over again. And then, you know, they put some more bullets in him and then take him out.
I don't give a fuck either, motherfucker!
So then we see Sims say, I don't think you can rehabilitate those types, talking about Crazy K. You just kill him.
I don't think you can rehabilitate those types. Nah, you just kill them.
What do you think about that?
I think that he's saying this as the perspective of the devil, right? So it could be to say that, you know, what the devil would say would be wrong, I guess. And those types can be rehabilitated. And he's saying that basically, like Crazy K was doing the work of the supremacists, these 3 guys doing the work of the devil. So the supremacists aren't like God, like the first guy in the cage. They're more like Sims, the devil.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. You know, they can't be rehabilitated, so the only answer is for them to let go. And you know what that makes me think of too is like the judgments that maybe I make about some things, like especially when it comes to racism and all that stuff, and like some people who are just so steeped in it and, you know, generations old, you know, and stuff like that. You know, I think about like the woman who had basically facilitated Emmett Till, that whole situation, right? She recently passed away. And I think about like she got to like live her life out and everything, receiving death threats, but ultimately she lived the rest of her life where that child did not. And just, you know, can people like that really be rehabilitated or not? You know, did she go to her grave
I think it's kind of
with the
like,
same value set or not?
I think it's kind of like with that hallucination is that you are near death experience if you can basically have a come to Jesus moment, for lack of a better phrase, then maybe yes, right? Because if Crazy K had a different mindset, he's confronted with all this, then maybe they don't off him. or maybe he doesn't die. But we don't even know if when they filled him up was really after. That's just how it's shown to us. But at the same time, I do wonder what story he told the three guys. What story did Sims tell them? Did he tell them the story of his hallucination, near-death experience? Or did he just say, oh, some cats came and popped him a bunch?
I don't know. I guess I'm going to choose to believe that the way we saw the story is the way he told it to them. But at the same time, in this story, they're in it. So that's weird because, what is he like? Oh, and then when you stood over him and took him out.
No, he probably said three guys, right?
Uh-huh.
And it was because they still went on. It was like, all right, where's the shit now? Just give it to me.
Yeah, they did. And just another question still on my mind is just like, so are some people beyond redemption? And who's in the position to make that decision or not?
I think it's all that some people aren't, right? But it all comes down to who decides, because who decides that some people aren't and who decides that all people are.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's who decides. Most of the moral dilemmas when it comes to like laws and policies and stuff, with me personally, I think of who is deciding.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes down to who's deciding, it's like, dang, no one should be deciding these things. Because most of the time it's like with democracy and everything, oh, I believe this, so this is the way things should go. And that's what makes it right or wrong, is because I personally believe it.
Yeah.
That's most people's perspective.
Yeah. Like, I guess the way I look at it is I have my personal belief on it. So there are people who I look at and I'm like, yeah, that person could be too far gone. And mostly these are people who I don't know personally. Like, they're the people who may be in famous stories and things like that go on, or things you see on the news. You're like, yeah, that sounds, but at the end of the day, I recognize that I don't have a whole lot of information on the situation. And I just go, but that's just my thought. And I'm not doing I'm not doing anything. At the end of the day, I just leave it where it is.
Not doing anything is an act too. That's the conundrum.
Well, it's the choice, right? Because the other part is I prefer to act in situations where I have more information.
Yeah, but okay, it's like the people on the train, the trolley dilemma, right?
Uh-huh.
Some people on the train tracks over here, 3 people, is one over there. Do you switch the track? Deciding not to is deciding something.
Yeah, no,
So, yeah,
I completely take responsibility for inaction is a decision. And it is a deliberate decision on my part in many situations.
And I'm saying it could be the wrong decision. So that's the part of the dilemma of choosing not to choose.
Mm-hmm.
That it's the wrong decision.
It could be the wrong decision. Yeah.
So they basically revealed that it's these 3 cats who offed Crazy K.
Yeah, what you gonna do? Call the cops or some shit?
Oh, why would I do that?
Bulldog was like, because you know who did it.
Cause you know who it was that killed the nigga and you ain't said shit.
When they're asking, are you going to tell the cops or whatever? What would make them think he knows who did it?
I guess maybe because of the way he told the story. It goes back to your question of how did he tell? What exactly did he say?
Yeah.
Maybe he did say, and when y'all was standing over his body, maybe that is what he said.
Yeah. But still, how would you know? But they still wanted to go and get the shit after this.
So what's interesting to me, though, is that you have this guy who is soon to be revealed, played by Clarence Williams III, excellently, as the devil. But yet he's giving like cautionary tales, and he is presenting moral dilemmas and trying to teach a thing when it just seems contrary. It's weird. It's like, why would you want to take these guys through this? Why not just reveal yourself? What is the purpose of all this?
Because it's like the supremacists who's like, these people were doing my work. Now they're here. Because all the ones who they showed basically did terrible things.
So maybe you want to torment them with the knowledge that all along they've been working on your team. Maybe.
Yeah, or it's for some selfish reasons, right? I want to just tell these people the great works that
I have done in
the world. Yeah.
And then, okay, let's go back to some of the other stories we didn't discuss here, but like the stories where in the second tale where the little boy gets the monster, right? In the end, where the dolls get their revenge. Okay, so if I'm the doll, like, if I agree that it was right for the little boy to get his revenge, or if I agree that the dolls did what they had to do, then are they doing the work of the devil? And then I'm by proxy, is my, doing the work of the devil, or, like, am I actually doing it, but like, am I siding with the devil here? These are the questions that I'm asking.
No.
Because,
maybe the devil knows that the monster and the politicians and the cops acts will lead them to hell, right?
So the monster, the politician, the dirty cops, the bad, they belong to the devil already, so to speak. And he just needs to
come to collect the soul. The devil's come to collect. But the first story was actually about Clarence, who was the cop who didn't tell on the other cops.
And he had to come to collect, because that even showed that your inaction, kind of like what you were just talking about, right?
Yeah.
His inaction is what doomed him.
Yeah.
Your inaction can doom you.
So every choice needs to be the correct one, because you might end up here with Sims.
I know. I don't know. Just going through the thoughts on this, but yeah.
Now let's just get the shit first.
Shit. Follow me. Woo! We gonna get the shit now. Yeah, the doo-doo.
Man, ain't this some shit?
So it is said that there's basically like the Book of the Dead or something similar, and their names are there.
But you can't see that on the film, but yeah, they did mention that.
The poopity pop. We gonna get the shit.
He said a poopity pop. They're still like, where's the shit? Where's the shit? He's like, I have it hid. But when he starts going, woo, woo.
It's all man crazy. Woo!
Do you remember that Clarence Williams III played father in Sugar Hill, and he takes this hit, and that's what takes him out in the end. He ODs in Sugar Hill, but when he's dying, he does a similar thing. I don't know. I think that's just in his repertoire of like crazy things that can happen.
Sort of like Bang Bang Bang.
John Witherspoon.
Yeah.
Even within these films, they might have their signature moves and sayings that they pull off. But he was like, ooh, and then, he OD'd in this very dramatic way in Sugar Hill, the movie.
Ooh.
So he lures the three guys who are holding him at gunpoint into this really like downstairs, the back room.
Basement.
Mm-hmm.
The coffins. Well, what I
So they went from the outside like, man, this look creepy. We shouldn't be going in here, to now we're way in the basement, way back behind cobwebs and old books that's never been touched in who knows how many hundreds of years. But you're willingly going back there.
For the money, for what for it to be, for the goods, so to speak. Because what would have happened if one of them tried to just turn and run out of there at any point?
Yeah.
I don't think you were getting out, but still.
It better be in here.
Okay, so they're like, it's better be in here. And you asked the question, what if they run out, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Crazy K's story, it's what if he just said, oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be doing these things. Maybe he lives. If they aren't so into wanting to sell drugs, maybe they get to leave.
Maybe.
They're like, no, we don't want it no more. You told us these stories. We out of here.
Well, and the decision might be between not necessarily life and death, but where you go after death because you're already dead.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't know, do you get to go to a purgatory to kind of work it out and figure out where you should be? Speaking of purgatory, we did this great fan theory on the movie Queen and Slim that centers around this notion of purgatory. You guys should check it out. I'll link it in the description. But yeah, check that out on the channel. But yeah, so it may not be between life and death. You may not get to live, but certainly to be, I guess, go to heaven or purgatory. Someplace that's not hell.
Maybe the thing is, once you open that casket with you in it, that's it. That's
it's solidifying
it. You shouldn't open that trying to get some dope, bro.
Yeah.
One by one, they open the caskets and they see themselves in there. But I think that they should have opened it from the other way, where Bulldog opened his first.
Why?
Because the other people can see what's in the casket in front of them. But if you opened it and the top is obscuring the other two people's views.
Oh, yeah. They should have
It has to have been like a surprise. Like, why are they acting like this? But I'm sure that Bulldog seen balls.
I ain't opening my casket.
Yeah,
if I done seen y'all in the other ones, I'm like, time to go. I wouldn't even been in there. But I'm just saying, I see what's in yours. It don't take 3 times for me to learn.
I know.
I see the first one and I'm like, all right, time to go.
The first person just has a reaction like that. I'm not opening mine. All right, bye.
It's over.
No, I ain't hearing this.
So then the big reveal is that after they did Crazy K in, some of his boys came and got them back. And so what we saw in Crazy K's near-death experience had 0 to do with what actually happened to these 3 guys.
After you killed Crazy K, a few of his boys killed you.
And so now they're here and, you know.
Just the way he said, I guess you didn't
You
make
didn't make it.
I guess you didn't make it.
I mean, because at the end, it's just kind of funny because they're pulling out guns. They're like, let's blast them.
But yeah.
You know, all these things. But he already knows from the minute he sees them that, hey, he has the upper hand.
Yeah. And the movie had some funny points, right? But I think this part wasn't done well. Because you had this serious message in the last story, and then you basically joke it away with how it is revealed that they're in hell.
Well, you know, that's not uncommon with, I guess, our scary movies that are like the black or even hood scary movies. I think about Vampire from Brooklyn.
Well,
you know, although that was more of a comedy.
It's just
scary
this part.
movie,
The last story wasn't really funny. It was all serious, just serious thing going on. This is their wraparound that's intertwined with that. That's saying this is a serious matter, black on black crime. You're doing the work of whoever. And now you end up in hell. And then they have this funny scene of them basically dancing in fire, which makes you laugh about what happened. Instead of be like, oh my, this is so serious that they ended up here. I'm scared. I need to change my life.
Yes! Ain't no funeral home.
So Clarence Williams III played the hell out of that.
Welcome to hell.
Yes.
But the other 3, it was comical. And he basically pulled off a devil in that moment. And it kind of takes away from what he did, their reaction.
Yeah, because I just think you're talking about like a seasoned and better actor. You know, like he's in this film and everything, but like.
I think so. Joe Torre is a comedian. And the other 2 could be said to be comedic actors. Like, I think they were trying to be funny. And I don't think that necessarily.
And maybe they just don't know how to be anything else, right?
Yeah. That's true.
And there were points where the filmmakers they preferred the comedy, like when they're walking up, when they first walk up, you know, they liked the idea and they said that, oh, it's lifting the mood. But at this point, at the crescendo of the movie, the mood doesn't need to be lifted. We're supposed to be taking this message. And it should have been very serious.
Yeah, welcome to hell, yeah.
See Sims morphing into the devil, the walls fall away, and they are revealed as being in hell. But why were they thrashing around like that? Like it was funny. It just shouldn't have been funny in this moment.
It shouldn't have been.
Hell is not funny.
And it's a horror movie. You know, I want to end it on dang. But I guess in other horror movies, you kind of get a different ending where they could ride off into the sunset and make a funny joke or something. But this movie doesn't give you that opportunity. But I think it would have been better if it just didn't. It just ended. This is terrible horror.
Yeah, I wanted them to be terrified because, you know, what happens to them happens to everybody else in these depictions, right? When they're like, wait a minute, I'm dead. You know, when the person who's dead realizes that they're dead, there's like always this whole thing. And their first instinct was to deny that. No, I ain't dead. How am I being this, mortuary if I'm dead and all that? And the realization should have just been completely haunting, frightening, and terrifying.
Yeah.
To them. And it wasn't. So you just left at the end of the movie, boom, it goes to a black screen and then it starts playing some hip hop music as you're getting up and walking out of the theater. I can't remember if I saw this in the theater or not. I think I did though. I'm almost certain I saw this in the movie theater when it came out.
You had to in 95.
Yeah, I think so. I'm fairly certain that I did, because like pretty much anything that came out in the early to just the whole 90s, I was
got
there.
A groove back. You was at the movies for that one?
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
I was
Waiting to Exhale,
well,
all of that.
not.
Yeah. I was at the theater. Maybe by the late 90s, I wasn't there on opening night,
Beloved?
Oh, yeah, definitely
Okay.
Beloved, because that was a book. And so we had to see how that was going to turn out. Great disappointment. But yeah, Beloved for sure.
What?
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that happened after we originally released the wraparound story is a lot of you guys had feedback and comments that on that original video that this film was scary to most people as kids. Like it just scared you to death. This and Candyman, by the way, Candyman, which we did cover as part of this October Movie Fest. So we'll link that in the description as well. But a lot of you specifically didn't get this notion of it being funny to us when the big reveal happens and we see that Mr. Sims is actually like the devil, and then we see the flames licking and they're jumping and dancing and whatever around. Like a lot of you were like, I did not think that was funny one bit. I can't tell you, that's the comment that we get even years later on that film, was about the fact that, the graphics in that part of the video or the movie just, they weren't 2025 graphics. So, they kind of looked a little bit cheesy in there. And that was the thing that made me specifically laugh. And I don't remember, Heit, did you say you laughed too?
Yeah, even when it came out, because of the way they were moving.
Mm-hmm.
So not even just the graphics, just how they were moving was very weird.
Yeah, so I still stand by my original thing. It was funny to me. But the other part is a lot of you might be younger, right? But when this movie came out, I was a young adult. So, it wasn't like I was 6 years old or 10 years old seeing this movie and it was scaring me. Like I had some idea of what was real and what was not. And, by this point, I had seen tons of scary films because I was a real horror film buff back then. So I just didn't take it to heart that way. So I defend my original position. But I know some of y'all did not play about that. And you were like, how could you laugh at that? But yeah. So we thank you for joining us for taking another look at Tales from the Hood. Don't forget to go to the description where you'll be able to see our videos on all of the other individual tales already linked below. You can just go ahead and binge watch that because this is all coming out in October and we know you guys like the scary movies.
If you made it this far, type flames in the comments so we'll know you're one of the real ones who stick around to the end.
And be sure to check out one of the videos that's on the screen right now. And also be sure to visit axiom.app, where you'll find all of our recent videos across all of our channels, because this ain't the only one, where you can watch them right here on YouTube because we'll give you the links. Also visit axiom.app for our new merch. Get you some.